Welcome back to the Peggy Smedley Show, the podcasting voice of IoT and digital transformation.
Hello, we are coming to you live from PTC's Liveworx. This is the Peggy Smedley Show, and I am super excited. I am here with Cathy, Hackl, futurist and AR, VR author and enterprise marketing of Magic Leap. Hello, Cathy. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Peggy, for having me. It's
look, we've got the product here, and later on I'm going to actually go and try it, so I'm pretty stoked about that. So let's talk. Tell me a little bit about Magic Leap.
Oh my goodness. So Magic Leap is based out of Plantation, Florida. We're one of the highest funded startups in the history of startups. We've been very successful, and we recently launched the first spatial computing device of its kind, really. And this is like truly futuristic kind of hardware, but that can actually solve real world problems for businesses right now.
So tell me what that actually means. When somebody says you could solve I've got a lot of problems to begin with. So I want to know what problems of mine you're going to solve. So all my viewers go, what are those problems you have, Peggy? No, give me an idea what that means.
So basically, we're already working with clients in the manufacturing side and healthcare to help them with the assembly line, helping workers get upskilled. And there's even the possibility of having a worker start to train on a piece of machinery even before it's deployed or produced. So that's pretty exciting.
So I love the idea of upskilling because we talk about in manufacturing, they've got 2 to 3 million shortage of employees. And the idea that they're not going to lose their jobs, that you can upskill, just rings so dear and near to my heart, because I wrote a book about the crisis in American manufacturing. And one of the things when we talk about is instead of having them be unemployed, that you can upskill an employee. Walk me through how you're going to help them do that.
So definitely, I think that people are so concentrated in thinking about automation and artificial intelligence replacing jobs. I think our hardware actually helps the worker become a better worker. Exactly, upskilling them, giving them those skills. Just an example would be in the assembly line, being able to wear a headset and see notes and annotations and videos that are going to help them do their job, or remote assist, where they're actually able to call someone in and be able to repair something using the guidance of someone that's someone that's retiring or might be retiring. So I think retaining that knowledge within a company is one of the ways spatial computing can be incredibly helpful.
When we think about spatial computing, how disruptive is technology like this? Because to me, I think it's changing the game in the way we think about technology in manufacturing.
Definitely, I think first I'm going to define spatial computing the way we see it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that'd be useful. So there's terms like AR and VR. We go beyond that. So spatial computing is a new form of computing that combines computer vision and artificial intelligence to seamlessly blend digital content in your reality. And this content, when you put it in your reality, is spatially aware. What I mean by that is that, let's say I have a digital ball in my hand and I throw it against the wall will bounce back because it understands and respects the physics of the space. So as you see, it's even a step further from just overlaying, an item, an AR item onto something. There's actual interactivity.
It's disrupting in the sense that you're looking at something that's completely different than what people think AR and VR are in the sense of what it is in that spatial surrounding. How does something like this change the way you see a manufacturing environment? Because now you're seeing something that's actually there in the sense of the way something's being produced on a manufacturing floor.
I mean, you can have tons of data. One of the really interesting things about spatial computing is that the digital content that you place is persistent. So what I mean by that is, let's say I place certain videos or voice recordings or instructions on the manufacturing floor, but I have to step away and go to a different room. When I come back, it's still there. It's still persistent, and other people can see it. So from a training perspective, a manager can come in and set up a whole training in the context of that manufacturing facility, and allow that to stay there. So when a new employee comes in, they can wear the headset and do the training in the store and see the same thing he did.
So enterprises are going to have a whole new way of doing things that they've never imagined in spatial computing. So multiple lines or anything that they're thinking about can be used in this. Does it matter what type of enterprise can use this?
No. So in my role at Magic Leap, we work with verticals, all types of verticals: manufacturing, healthcare, AEC, retail, you name it. It's just across, because I feel we've identified what we call 3 universal applications for our technology that hit every single one of the verticals. The first one is communication, collaboration, and co-presence. The second one is training. And the third one is 3D visualization. We feel like our technology can really help vertical, any company across any vertical with these types of things.
When you're looking at this overall, how are companies actually harnessing its complete potential? So give me some different
I'll give you a concrete example. Maybe that's what we want. So for example, there's a company called Bad VR. They're winners of one of our independent developer programs. And they created this analytics platform, this data platform where someone can wear the headset and they can go into a manufacturing facility and see where all the Wi-Fi signals are and the strength of the Wi-Fi signals. And why this matters, for example, for manufacturing is maybe it's a connected facility and you need more connectivity. You can actually see where those spots are. Or it's a manufacturing facility that's manufacturing something very sensitive and you want absolutely no chance of connectivity. You're able to identify if there's a small one here where someone might be, use it for the wrong types of purposes. So, that's one of the clear examples on how this technology allows you to visualize things that are digital that are not easy to see, and how that can better a company.
So as I'm imagining it right now, you're breaking kind of the barriers of both the spatial and the digital world by doing this right now. Are there companies right now that are coming to you and saying, I'm still trying to imagine how my company can take advantage of this, and are struggling to really understand in what ways to do it, that you're saying, let us kind of literally walk you through this and try that?
Yeah, we definitely have had those types of conversations at, a lot of different events. A lot of what I do is educating and kind of helping potential clients understand the benefits of spatial computing and kind of letting them wrap their heads around how this is going to disrupt their business.
It seems, when you first hear it, you're like, I'm going to put this on and I'm actually going to imagine in the spatial world my manufacturing operations, which is, if you think about it, is a very physical, concrete way of doing things. Now you're taking them into this spatial world, and it's really so disruptive in a way that it's completely different to what most people can imagine, which is truly done in such a very static way in some ways, that you think is it takes them out of their realm of traditional way of doing things.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the interesting part. I mean, people right now have their physical selves and their digital lives, and you already have that live on your phone, right? So this is pretty much that convergence between your digital self and your physical self. So I think that's the mindset change when they realize, oh wow, I can actually do both things here, and I can use the digital to actually help me be a better worker. So yeah, it's impactful if you think about it.
Does it change because you're doing that, the type of employees that you're now having? Because you have to change, and the skilled worker that you talk about, is it changing the role and the individuals that you have in manufacturing facilities when you go in and you talk to them about this?
It definitely can. What I have noticed is like the younger generations that are coming into the workforce actually are a lot more open to this technology. Not that the older workers aren't, but I think that they can really understand the concept because so much of their lives is on their phone. So it's just a really interesting thing. I have noticed also like older workers actually excited about the technology because it's making their work faster, or they're cutting down, on a task that would take, 2 weeks to do, cutting it down to 3 days. That's pretty exciting.
So looking at this, what should companies consider when you want them to come and take a look at this? What's the main thing they should be thinking about to even consider this, to consider what you're doing right now with Magic Leap?
I think the biggest thing is the misconception that we are only about consumers, because I think there's been a big push with Magic Leap on the consumer side, but we're also heavily focused on enterprise. We've been working in the enterprise for several years now with clients. Obviously, I can't disclose all our clients, but we are actually solving real world problems currently. And that depends on the company, whether it's training or optimization or collaboration. There's different, there's different things our technology can do for companies. How to start? I would say, one of the best things is to actually try our technology. If you're at a trade show like Liveworx or, other trade shows that we go to, is putting on the headset and really experiencing that. Because I think that that's the moment when we put on the headset on a potential client and they see the possibilities, it clicks with them and they understand the potential and how this can actually work.
So I'm actually going to be going and doing this later, and I'm going to have my team video me, so people are going, I wish you'd do it right now, but I'm actually going to be doing it, and I'm going to be experience it, because I think what the interesting thing is to really go through this. And when they do it, what is the feedback that you've had from a manufacturer that actually says, I've tried it? When they've come over to you, because I could see on the consumer end side, people see it. But when you've worked with manufacturers and they try it and they go, I'm still trying to figure out how to embrace it. Are they starting to see, okay, I can see what I'm doing, or are they still sometimes reluctant? You said the older, manufacturers might be, but I can see how they can do it. Are you getting them to get buy-in on this, or are they still struggling? Because if you look at a facility like this, where you have a lot of companies here, they have to see that this is where you have Jim Heppelman talking about how you have to put all these creative ideas together for the digital thread. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah. It's interesting. The biggest reaction that we get when someone puts this headset on is that they realize that it's not VR. So it's not blocking them from the real world. It's their real world. They're just wearing, the spatial computing device. They can see the real world, and then they can interact with these elements. And I think that that's the biggest change. I mean, most of the feedback is so positive, and it's, eye-opening, I think, for a lot of companies, and be like, wow, this can actually help and improve my processes.
When you look right now and you think about what's happening in technology, and you look about the future and disruptive technologies as a futurist, what's your take on where we're going to see spatial technology and other things like that? What's your take on it overall?
I think it's a really exciting time to be alive, to be honest. I think, there are people out there that are pretty dystopian about the future. I'm pretty, optimist about how these technologies are emerging. I look forward to the day when we move away from, looking down at our phones all the time to actually being able to still look people in the eye. Yeah, there's going to be data, and you're going to be looking at data, but we're still going to be able to have that eye-to-eye interaction and get back to the campfire. So.
And it's an interesting thing when we think about how we collect data, how we interpret data, how we receive and decide what data is going to make real-time decisions. Are things like this, when we look at spatial, are they going to change the way we interpret, how we react, and decide when a machine's going to fail, how we're going to be able to make quicker decisions and save millions of dollars in the way waste and material times, and be able to keep uptime in manufacturing operations?
Definitely. I think we'll probably be sharing some statistics in the future on how these technologies are actually helping, the supply chain and everything. So you'll be seeing a lot more, I think, from the enterprise side. From what
do you think a lot of this will actually go into, if you think about retail and maybe the last mile delivery and things like that, do you see that playing a part of this as well, beyond what just in manufacturing right on the plant floor, but all the way through the supply chain as you just described?
All the way through. I see it all the way through, and I see it across almost every discipline. Because the reality is that we're moving away from just the physical world that we've been building on to that digital layer that's on top of everything with, connected cities, IoT. So when you think about it, we're moving away from things just being about bricks and about building facilities and building items to actually having a digital footprint and a digital twin of everything. So that's kind of what we call the Magicverse, and that's a little bit further out there. That would take like a whole other 30 minutes for us to have a conversation about. But we
really see this actually, going into the whole building side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, building homes and building buildings and the connected world of that whole side of things. But when you look at this entire side of the challenge that companies are having right now, they have to figure out what's best for them. And I think the interesting thing when we look at technology is getting past ourselves, right? Our own fears. Is that part of the challenge when you look at things like this?
I think so. I think that there is that challenge, that fear of the unknown or of technologies that, people might feel threatened by. But the reality is that once they try the headset, they realize how powerful it is. For example, one of the things that's kind of one of our North Stars is something we call human-centered artificial intelligence. So what we're trying to do is we aim to humanize artificial intelligence, and we have a prototype of a virtual human. And her name's Micah, and people interact with her, and it's really interesting because she's non-threatening. It's this really amazing experience, and you sit down with Micah, and I've seen people, even myself, when I interacted with her, she would smile and I would smile back. It's just human. People, like, she's yawned, people have yawned. There's this cause and effect with this element of artificial intelligence. And when people experience her, they come back talking about her in very human terms. And I think that if you really think about that can be extremely powerful for the way we interact with artificial intelligence, not just being this term that we're throwing out everywhere, but actually making it make sense. Right? We're already we talk to our phones, we talk to our Alexas. What is that going to look like in the future?
Long term, what do you think is going to be the outcome for manufacturers and, industry overall when we look at technology like this? Is it going to take time for them to embrace this? Are they embracing it now, or are we slowly making the adoption to it?
I think we're slowly making the adoption. I mean, I wouldn't say everyone has embraced it right now. I will say, a lot of people have definitely reached out to us that, would surprise you. I feel that there is an urgency in the enterprise world to innovate in a smart and fast way. And I think we're going to get there eventually.
Does it take for companies like this who are future thinking, who get, like you get a PTC who says, look, we get AR, we get VR, we think spatial is the next evolution, generative design. When you think those things all come together, that this is a part of all of that, and if you're going to incorporate that, that's how you're going to see things, because you're not going to have the people you normally have. We're talking then robotics. You're going to need to put all of these things together. And when you incorporate all of this technology, that's where this next big evolution, because you have to figure out how are you going to be able to do more with less. Is that a part of that? And is a part of that, you're going to be able to see things you never were able to see, and this technology enables you to see around and react to things you weren't able to do before. Is that what we're really talking about?
Definitely. I think the key word that I'm walking away with from Liveworx is the word convergence. I feel like everyone's talking about convergence. That's the word of the word that describes the event. And it's this convergence of not just, VR or AR. It's AI, IoT, sensors, facial recognition, all these different elements really converging in this, in the future of manufacturing, in the future of enterprise. So it'll be really interesting, to see where we are in 5 years.
Will this be a part of that whole digital thread too that they talk about here? Is this going to be something that companies all say, look, we're a part of this, and manufacturers will need to understand how to incorporate it? Or is it going to be something that the younger generation is going to say, I'm just doing it and I'm bringing you along, manufacturers. We get it. And you're going to have to come along because we understand the technology.
I think it's going to be a mix of both, to be honest. I think it's not just going to be either or. I think it's going to be a mix of both. I think the biggest thing when a company's trying to incorporate these types of technologies is not just coming to the worker and saying, put these on and do your job. It's more like, how can they actually help test the technology? How do they feel about it? How is this making their lives better? And actually have them be a part of the process. And that could be a young worker and an older worker, but I think that part of including the worker when you're incorporating these technologies is incredibly important.
Well, when I walked over to your booth, you had a long line. Everybody was over there. Everybody wants to experience it. When they're done experiencing it, what's their feedback?
Mostly positive. I think that people don't really know what to expect when they put it on. Let's say, like I said, there's misconceptions like VR or what this is, but when they're actually in there and you have multiple people looking at the same element and interacting with it, that's where it all clicks.
So they start understanding and what they can do. So have there been manufacturing companies coming over there, or are there still kind of the consumers going, I really don't know what it is yet, but I wanted to see it? It's a combination of everybody.
We have a combination. I mean, this show has been fantastic from an enterprise perspective.
I love it. All right.
So, yeah.
That's great. Well, Cathy, I've enjoyed having you on the show. This is Cathy Hackl, futurist and AR/VR author and enterprise marketing of Magic Leap. Thank you so much for spending time with us. All right, well, that's all the time we have right now. We want you to share your thoughts with us. Tweet at us at ConnectedWMag. As always, this is the Peggy Smedley Show, the podcasting voice of IoT and digital technology. And remember, with great technology comes great responsibility. We'll be back after a short break.